All right, guys. So continuing on in the theme of our making the cases for coaches, we've gone through a few like James Franklin and guys like Ryan Silverfield. We had as well as who am I missing? Which was one that we did last
Big
week?
Golish.
Golish, yes, yeah, Golish. We had him too, and there's again a bunch of others and all of them, but Rhett Lashley is one that kind of from the jump was mentioned and is still kind of staying into people's minds and where he's at. But he's the SMU head coach. We know that he is from Arkansas. He's an Arkansas guy. He played at Arkansas. He's been in the coaching ranks for a long time. He's even from Northwest Arkansas, by the way, too. But there's people that feel like he would be great here, especially with the Arkansas connection. He went 11-3 last year at SMU's coach, went 11-3 in 2023. This year he's at 5-3. But guys, if you were looking at Rhett Lashley, make the case for him being the head coach or not being the head coach here at Arkansas.
Oh, I didn't know that there was an option to make the case for him to not be the head coach. So I wasn't prepared for that. I'm pulling up these. I don't even know where this came from, by the way, but like SEC Mike and the fellas had these odds of head coaches, and Rhett Lashley was a 3-1 for them. You guys can yell about Brian Kelly or Mike Gundy or whatever if you want to while we talk about this, but yeah, I mean, you kind of hit it on the head with some of it. Like, he's a native son. He played in the SEC, coached in the SEC, was on staff for some really good Auburn teams, so he gets it from that standpoint. It's a pretty impressive resume. Like, made a bowl in his first season as a head coach there at SMU. Then he won 11 games and ran the table in the AAC in his second year. And then you move up, like you level up to the ACC. And his first year, they run the table there and they win 11 games and they make college football playoff and they lose to legendary big game coach James Franklin. So they're a little bit down this year, I guess, but if they beat Miami this weekend, they're right in position for the ACC championship game again. Like, they've got 3 losses, but they're right there in the thick of things in that league. I don't really care that Chad Morris coached at SMU, and I don't really care that he's a Gus Malzahn disciple. None of that stuff moves me. None of it bothers me. I'll say him going from the AAC to the ACC and then like not even skipping a beat, that automatically puts him a little bit ahead of some of those intriguing unknowns that we talk about, like Golish and Silverfield and some of those guys, just because you don't have to do as much projection. Like, you've already seen him step it up a notch and have the same similar level of success. So that's good. It's an exciting offense. Maybe not as exciting this year as it has been in previous years, but I think the Arkansas job would mean something to him, even though, word on the street is that he's scared of it or whatever. I don't know. Like, we know that he has internal support, right? So as it pertains to generating resources and NIL and the things that you need to be able to be successful as a football program, he is one of the candidates that we know that would be in place for. Will it be equal to or surpass what he already has in an easier league? I don't know the answer to that question. But I guess at the end of the day, for me, Rhett Lashley, I don't really like to rank candidates. I kind of place him more in categories, and he is the most logical fit by far, I think. And that's why his name's been connected to it so much, even after some of the reporting that's come out in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, you mentioned the resume, and like you said, it's logical. Like, Rhett Lashley makes so much sense on paper because you look at the resume. He's won. He's done a good job in the last 5-6 years. Done a good job building up that SMU program. Took over a solid operation and has really made it nice. And like you said, hasn't skipped a beat going to the ACC. And of course, he graduated from the University of Arkansas. He's from Springdale. Like, it just checks a lot of those boxes that, when you're looking for a guy. He's 42, offensive minded, coached under some other good coaches. Like, there's just a lot there that just makes sense. Before I even do my spiel, though, I do want to make it clear. Obviously, I've been kind of more or less anti Rhett Lashley. Not that I don't think he's a good coach. Not that I don't think Arkansas should hire him or be looking at him. He just hasn't always been like my favorite guy. But I do want to be clear about something. If you are of the belief that he is an SMU head coach and Chad Morris was an SMU head coach and therefore Arkansas cannot hire him, and that is you're not really willing to contemplate any other nuance in this discussion, you are not a smart person, and you need to develop some critical thinking skills. Now, that is coming from someone who doesn't even view Rhett Lashley as like this can't miss candidate that like is the greatest thing in the world. I just think that, like you said, Curtis, there's so much more to this, and I think that's kind of a stupid lens to view this thing through, especially because the context is very different. His resume at SMU completely different. SMU is now an ACC school where they went 8-0 in the ACC last year. It's a very, very different conversation. Matter of fact, he won more ACC games last year at SMU than Chad Morris ever won games at SMU in a season. So again, it's not an apples to apples comparison. By the way, I don't think, because he's from Springdale and he went to Arkansas, I don't personally believe that Rhett Lashley is waking up every day thinking about the Hog and thinking about how much the state of Arkansas means to him. I don't really think he's that kind of guy, but I do think that would be if you're going to make the case, that premise is something that you would need to start selling. And I think Rhett Lashley, if it were in his best interest, I think he should start selling that of like, oh yeah, this was always my dream job. Everything I did, I was trying to get back here, which we know is not true. But it's like, I think if you're going to take the job, he needs to commit to that. I think he really needs to commit to being the Arkansas guy, especially with this fan base. You know how much they love guys who spent time in Arkansas. And so I think that would be a smart thing for him to do, is kind of lean into that. I also think back to what I said yesterday about Lane Kiffin, where he took over that Raiders job when he was 32 or whatever, and he wasn't ready for it. He took over the USC job, and he wasn't ready for it. But somewhere along the line, he figured something out. And so when I look at Rhett Lashley and his resume, and of course you go to Arkansas State, he was at Auburn with Gus, he's bounced around a little bit, was the OC at SMU, went away, came back as the head coach. I wonder what skills he's developed over these last however many years. I mean, he's 42. It's a guy that's still evolving, still kind of figuring this thing out. And like you mentioned, Curtis, I think the fact that they went to the ACC and had success, albeit against a little bit of a weaker ACC schedule, and they did get hammered in the title game, and they got hammered in the playoff. Like, I get all that. I still think that's impressive. I mean, think about some of these candidates like Golish, Summerall, whoever, Silverfield. Wouldn't you feel way better about Silverfield if Memphis moved to the Big 12 and they went 11-2? You'd be like, oh, wow. Now, like, I feel a little bit different about him. And so I think if this conversation were happening a year ago, it would feel a little bit different. I'm not super, sold on Rhett Lashley, but I do think there's a pretty easy case to make, honestly, in terms of, and the support, by the way, is the big thing. Would he have that support? Because I think with Rhett Lashley, he's a great offensive mind that he's proven everywhere that he's been. I think he's shown when he has more talent than you, he can put up crazy numbers offensively. He can really dominate you. If the talent's equal, he has a good chance to beat you. I don't know for sure if Rhett Lashley is that guy who can go out there and out scheme teams that are more talented than him. I was impressed with the Clemson win last week, but then you lose to Wake Forest. And so that's kind of a question he'll have to answer. But I think there's a pretty easy case to be made when you kind of add up all the pieces. And I think many Hog fans are ready to talk themselves into it.
Yeah, to me, it's about, if you were going to hire Rhett Lashley, I want to know what your intention is of hiring him. And what I mean by that, are you hiring him because he's an Arkansas guy? I hate that. I hate that if that is something that plays into your mind, to which, if he wasn't from Arkansas, would he be a legitimate candidate? If he wasn't connected to the Razorbacks, would you be looking at him in the same way as if he was? And if you say, well, no, the Arkansas connection's part of it, then I just don't really want that. I just don't really want that type of coach, because listen, you want to have somebody who's the best of all worlds. It would be great if someone's from Arkansas and is the best coach ever. And we know how many great coaches have come from the state of Arkansas, and it seems like none of them ever coached or was the head coach at Arkansas. And I get it. I'm someone who likes having Arkansas people around. But if that is your a priority for you, where it's above other things that are a little bit more important, then that's where I get a little bit concerned. However, if you're looking at it as the icing on the cake type of thing, where you look at Rhett Lashley's record, where you look at his ability as a coach, as an offensive mind, as a recruiter, as someone who can re-energize the fan base, you look at all those things, and then the bonus on top of it is that he's from Arkansas, I'm all for it. But I don't ever want to look at a coach and just be like, okay, well, he's from Arkansas, therefore he needs to be up here. I was like, well, again, if he wasn't from Arkansas, would he be in that same spot? If the answer is no, then I don't want to go that route. I don't want to have that. But again, we won't know what the intention is. We don't know. Not like they're going to come out and if they hired Rhett Lashley, be like, the number one thing that we saw was he was from Arkansas. I don't know if they're going to do that, but
is that what's happening here, by the way? Because I think Rhett Lashley, everyone has their view of who he is and where they rank him on the list. I'm sure there's somebody out there who wants to hire him just because he was at Arkansas. But is that a narrative y'all are seeing? Because I really haven't seen that. Because I mean, Florida's considering him other schools are considering him. I don't think they're considering him because he went to Arkansas. I don't think that's the basis of the conversation, because I'm with you. If you're hiring someone just because he went to Arkansas, yeah, that's stupid. I don't really think that's what's happening with Rhett Lashley, but I could be mistaken.
I think it's just kind of the narrative that has been built because of the connection. Like SMU's probably, if like folks are looking at it saying, okay, this is the young guy and he's in this situation. He's had a high level of success now in multiple leagues, and he just went to a CFP. Who's going to come poach him? And then you start looking at the jobs that might come open. And then you see Arkansas, you see he's from there, all those things. Like, it's just very easy to make those connections. And you have people like Feinbaum saying what they were saying about how he would covet the job and is trying to, pull strings behind the scenes to get it if and when Pittman gets fired. So it was inevitable that was going to happen. But if we didn't have that, I think, wouldn't we probably he would be in the list. He would be in the conversations. I think he would be on the same wavelength. In my opinion, still a slight notch ahead of the Golishes, the Silverfields, guys like that of the world, because he has now done it in a higher, even though I know the ACC is not the SEC or whatever, but it's better than the AAC as we're going through the entire alphabet here. But I would have him on that wavelength. I don't know that I would have him. He wouldn't be my most logical candidate at this point. You know what I'm saying? But he would be in the same conversations as some of those other guys, I think.
Right. No. And see, and that's all I'm saying is like, because I agree. It's not that there's this major narrative of that being the case, and that's the only reason why they want him. I'm just saying that if you're the board of trustees, whoever's making the hire, if you are prioritizing, got to get a guy from Arkansas as one of the things, that very seldom plays out. Now there's our occasions, like I remember with Michigan, it was always about getting a Michigan man, and it kept failing until they got Jim Harbaugh, and then because Jim Harbaugh was a Michigan man, he's like, okay, yeah, that adds up. But I think also something you brought up, Andrew, that was interesting, and I agree. I don't know Rhett Lashley personally. I have no idea what his mindset is at or anything. And I could be completely wrong. Maybe I was just looking at the wrong places. But as far as a guy that left Arkansas after 2006 as a graduate assistant and literally was attached to the hip of Gus Malzahn for the majority of his career, which is not a bad thing. I don't ever remember him coming back to Arkansas, being at Arkansas, like, going to a Razorback basketball game, during the off season or, just anything like that. And so again, maybe it's just I'm looking at the wrong places or I'm looking at it in the wrong way, but I've just never seen Rhett Lashley as, yeah, he's a guy from Arkansas. Yeah, he played at Arkansas, but is he all Arkansas? Like, is he just this guy that's, oh man, when you think of Razorbacks, I don't know. I feel like Tony Vitello is a guy who starts crying anytime he loses to Arkansas, but you got Rhett Lashley. If he played Arkansas in a bowl game, would he get emotional and be like, man, I remember my days there, and I love those Razorbacks. In fact, I feel like he'd be less about that than old Texas Tech coach would be, than what it is. So again, I think it would be a fine hire. I would not be against Rhett Lashley being the guy. It's just, I don't think the first thing you should ever bring up when you talk about Rhett Lashley is like, oh, well, he's from Arkansas. It's like, well, no, he's a good coach, and he just happens to be from Arkansas.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page on that front. One thing, because I looked it up just to make sure that I wasn't just talking out of my rear here. He has been connected to the Florida opening, not in a very official, like, oh, he's interviewing, but there's like numerous tweets from Florida accounts that are connecting him to the job. So I would strongly assert against the narrative that like this is a thing based on his connection to Arkansas. I do think like if you removed the Arkansas from his resume completely, I don't really think it would change the equation all that much. And for the same reason that you just said, like, it honestly hasn't been a thing that he's been like coming back, beating down the door. There was 1 year in his coaching, like he had a gap year in his coaching resume that I believe he spent in Northwest Arkansas, and he was like the quarterback's coach at Harbor or something like that while he was doing some other stuff. And so, maybe that's something. And I think also when you're coaching, you're the OC at wherever, it's kind of hard to, go back to Fayetteville and do your thing. And so I don't know what it is, but like I think like the fact that Florida is even considering him or is even on the list that any of their fans have come up with, that alone, like is not a reason to hire him. But it's like it's just nice to be having a conversation about someone that other people have looked at and wanted to be their head coach, if that makes sense. Because a lot of the guys we discuss, I mean, we spent a month talking about Bobby. Nobody would ever consider Bobby to be their head coach. Sam Pittman, the guy Arkansas just fired, nobody would ever consider Sam Pittman to be their head coach. That would be the one thing that if we're making the case for Lashley, I just like the fact that other people look at Rhett Lashley and like him.
Well, what about we're talking about connections or non-connections or whatever, and we can think about some of the and you know, we could talk a different time about whether or not the current AD is going to be the future AD, but how he just kind of went out and randomly got Eric Musselman. We're like, oh, what was this all about? And you know, the Discord's been on it for well over an hour now, but the Razorback Foundation plane landed in Provo, and so now everybody's like, oh shit, Kalani Sitake over at BYU. What do you guys think about that? He's got them boys rolling. Do you think it would work in Northwest Arkansas, the SEC? Are we on board? Can we add him to the big board? Is tomorrow making the case for Sitake?
Listen, the Sitake thing would surprise me a lot, only because he's a West Coast Samoan, you know, BYU, like he is a West Coast guy through and through. You look at his resume, it is all on the West Coast. Like, he has not even crossed over into the state of Texas. Actually, that's a lie. The only time Kalani Sitake went to the state of Texas was last year when he went to SMU and beat Rhett Lashley. He was one of the 2 teams that beat Rhett Lashley last year. Sitake's a great coach, and he's doing a great job at BYU, a very stable program.
He's undefeated in Razorback Stadium.
He is undefeated in Razorback Stadium, although 1-1 against Sam Pittman. So I don't know. That's a little bit of a red flag. But no, seriously, I think Sitake's a stud. That's one that I've never considered, just because, like, culturally, you know, I've never imagined Arkansas was going to go and get the Mormon football coach. You know, like, I never really thought about that. He is doing a great job, though, so I think it's something I'm cool to consider. I am very skeptical that this is a real thing. I'll just get my stance out there right now. I'm very, very skeptical that this is a real thing.
Can I just say about the plane tracking, as someone who did the plane tracking for a long time? Listen, you may think that these people involved in the coaching search are dumb, but they're not that dumb. They know everyone's plane tracking. They know people are looking at. You think that they're going to get on the official foundation plane and just think that no one's watching them and they're not going to start connecting dots and whatnot? Folks, it's like, for all we know, they stopped there to get fuel. Like, I mean, they stopped to get gas. They needed some extra fuel to go over there and interview Lincoln Riley in LA. You know, like, I mean, it's just something like that. But it just cracks me up when, which I get, it's fun because I was a part of it too. It's fun, but it's just, don't take it as in like, whoa, they're playing it here? God, that has to mean this. It's like, it's not that simple.
This is another case of consider the source too, because a lot of the people doing this the plane tracking bit are also people that were doing the, you know, oh, this guy's a lock. Oh, they're interviewing the Missouri offensive coordinator. And so, you know, I imagine these same group of people are going to continue to make a lot of different pisses in the wind.
You know what's been cool about this for me is now I know that, you know, Cal was back out to see some of his boys in the DMV, and it looks like he dropped in for Caleb Holt again, because you know some of those planes, right? And you kind of track them, and then right away it's like, okay, this could be anybody going anywhere, but I know if it's like 4 or 5 specific places that it's John Calipari on a plane going to see some recruits. It's been very beneficial to me, man. I love it.
Yeah, still, I know I told this story before. My favorite plane tracking moment was that poor airport in Springdale that had the guy on the plane that was with his mistress, and everyone thought it was everyone thought it was the next coach, and they had a crowd showing up out there. Oh, that was the glory days of plane tracking, man. Those are fun times.